I am Jacob. I'm from Denmark. I left Denmark many years ago now, more than 20 years ago, and so I was 24. I left in 2000. In August of 2000, I went to China. And at that time, I was living in Copenhagen, and I was studying political science in the university at that time, because I thought I was going to be a journalist. But it didn't really catch me that much. It was not what I expected, so I wanted to take a year off. Yeah, then I went to China to teach English. But you know, that didn't last for long. I very quickly ended up in the business world, trading products, just all kinds of physical stuff, like travel products, kitchen products, furniture, lamps. We were selling back to Europe, to retail chains like Aldi, Lidl, these big discount chains with thousands of stores. That's how I got into business. At that time, initially, it was not my business. It was another equally young Danish guy who I met there, just like completely random. And he got me out of that teaching stuff. He said, forget about that. Come work with me instead. And so I did. And I ended up working with him for almost 4 years. I always had that dream of being an entrepreneur, right? That's what I want to do, but I did not really know with what. But after those 4 years in China, I suddenly had something, right? I had some knowledge that was worth something. And so I quit on good terms, right? We are still friends today, but I quit. And then I started my own company and kept on working with trading in China and selling products back to Europe. So yeah, I had a great time, and it was a little bit wild. It was in Guangzhou, in Guangzhou in southern China, which is China's third largest city, with a huge place, right? There was a lot of cash economy involved, like with salaries, just envelopes with notes in it. We had a guy once who wanted to buy a bunch of suitcases from us, so he just rolled in with a little suitcase full of cash. Those days are long gone, but it was exciting, right? So I spent a lot of time going to the factories, driving around China and visiting it and see everything, understanding how it's all made and then getting it shipped out. But, eventually it became, as the year passed, it became less attractive to be the middleman just because of the rise of the internet, Alibaba, all that stuff that came up. It became easier for the end buyer to connect directly with the factory, and I realized that pretty early on. I thought that that's a kind of a battle I can't win. So maybe I need to climb up the value chain somehow. I need to add something to the things that I'm selling instead of just reselling existing stuff off the shelf. And then we are up around 2006-07. At that time, I had a stint back in Denmark, where I got connected with some designers, and I started getting interested in that. And then I moved from Denmark to Hong Kong. That means I had 4 years in China first, 2000 to 2004, then back to Denmark for a few years, and then I moved to Hong Kong because I wanted to be in Asia and be close to the trade, but I didn't want to live in mainland China anymore. I wanted to try something new, and Hong Kong was a very special place. Right? That's a great place. So I went there. I didn't know anyone, so I just moved into to Lan Kwai Fong. For those who know, it's the party street, right? I didn't know. I just didn't know anything, so I just knew that name, so I rented a condo there, and I lived there, and then I started working with product designers. There was a big group of Swedish and Danish designers living in Hong Kong, and that was kind of the way that I started moving away from the no-name goods into designer products. I was interested in working with creative people that could add some value to these manufacturing networks that I had built up at the time. the people I ended up working with in Hong Kong were very good at designing lamps and kitchen tools, like knives, like beautiful chef's knives. So that's what I started doing, chef's knives and lamps. I know they don't have any connection, but for me it didn't really matter because I had the factories, right? I had the access to the factories in China, and I just needed some beautiful design that I could then resell around the world, so that people couldn't just go directly to the source because they could only get that specific design through me. I launched Bulbul Watches in August 2013 with the Pebble design. That was after 2 years, as I mentioned, and then we were finally ready, and I just launched it on a simple website with a PayPal buy button, and it just sold out immediately. Within a week it was all gone. It was not like a huge inventory, but it just all gone. You know, I pretty early on realized maybe not realized, but I just thought that it was important to bring these two worlds together, the business world and the design world, because both these worlds are like very skilled, right? But sometimes they have a difficulty in connecting because they don't speak the same language. You know, sometimes like the business people in the suits and the ties, they can't connect to the designers and vice versa, but they are both great. And so I then positioned myself in the middle. I said, okay, I can talk to both these groups and then I can bring them together, because I want the business part, right? I can speak to the business community, the financing, the production, but I can also speak in a language that the designers like, right, and that they understand and that appeals to them. So yeah, so I made a list of the designers that I wanted to work with. I found I started analyzing the whole market of industrial designers all over the world, and I made this top 5 list. The very top I had a company called Kibisi, and Kibisi is a Danish design group that includes also Big, the architect, the very famous architect group with Bjarke Ingels in it. He's part of Kibisi as well. So they were this design trio from Denmark, and then I had a few others in the places below them. But this group, and specifically, I just thought they had a wonderful, beautiful design language that I could see, okay, if I can translate that design language onto like a very classic, well-established industry like watches, then something unique could come out of it. So that was the idea I had, and then I just called them up. And I prepared something, right? But I called them up and presented them with this idea, with making a watch brand, and they were interested. And then that's how it started. And then we spent 2 years developing the first design, which is the Pebble design, which is a 100% asymmetric watch. It's called Pebble because it's shaped after the pebble, these smooth pebble stones on the beach, which are all organic, but they're all asymmetric and they're all different. So that's where the design came from. And it took us 2 years from I made that phone call until we had a final prototype. So that was a long process, and that's what happens. I realize, right? Now I understand why people make round watches, because the whole industry is set up to making round things, right? Everything from the dial to the hands to the way they machine the casing and so on. It just fits perfectly with round things, and even the glass, right? The way that the casing of a watch holds the glass tight, just works better with a round shape. But I deliberately wanted some designers who were not aware of these difficulties, because sometimes, you know, if you know too much as a designer, then you also already know all the problems coming. And then sometimes you limit yourself a little bit because you know it's going to be difficult. You say, you know what, just give him a round watch, right? We don't want to stray into something too different. So yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I even have a philosophy, but start early. Just go for it, right? But don't take risks that are too crazy, right? You need to be able to live with the downfall, right? If it all goes wrong, because sometimes it does. It did for me as well, right? I've been up and down, but as long as you're not like in $1 million debt, right? You need to be able to get out of it, depending on what is a lot for you. I don't know, but so if you can do like a calculated risks and then develop your courage, believe in your instinct sometimes, even if people advise against it, right? Because sometimes people just don't know, right? Like your parents, they don't know. How can they know anything about what you're doing? And they just want the best for you, right? They want you to make a safe decision because that's their job, to keep you safe. But that doesn't mean that the thing you're about to do is not a good idea. Sometimes it is a good idea. And then have the confidence, yeah, and the courage as well. I keep going back to those words, right? Confidence and courage to go for your first choice, right? The best people, right? If you want to work with this company or these designers, then fucking go for it, right? Go for that. You don't just prepare yourself and then go for it and see how it turns out and be positive about it, and then of course be ready to work hard, because it is hard work, but it's also great. You're going to work hard anyway, right? Even if you're not an entrepreneur, then you're just going to work hard for someone else.